I'm outside, I got my coffee, and I'm ready to share with you guys all my tips about sleep training. So most of you that are watching me know that I started with twins. And so that was all I knew, was 2 babies at one time. And I will just preface all of this by saying it was very hard. It was a big challenge having 2 babies, but just 1 baby is a challenge too. 3 babies, 4 babies, like however many babies you have, sleep training is a challenge. As I told you in my video a couple of weeks ago, I tried to get my twin boys off on a schedule like ASAP. And hey, Amanda, hey, Natalia. So like day 1, I kind of started I would call it more of a rhythm and less of a schedule because newborns are so unpredictable. But we got into this rhythm where we were eating, playing, sleeping, eating, playing, sleeping, and that's all our days consisted of. But the sleeping was very important and obviously took up like a good amount of that time because they were newborns. I would say it wasn't until 12 weeks until I was ready to truly start sleep training them. And at 12 weeks, I moved them into their cribs in their bedrooms. So the first 12 weeks of their life, they slept in a rock and play, which rock and plays I'm pretty sure are like not even sold anymore because, different, what are those things called? Different baby stuff is just taken off the market for whatever reason, and rock and plays are not even sold anymore. But those things are lifesavers for twins. I'm not saying go get one, because I don't think they're even sold anymore, but I will tell you that they saved my life as a twin mom with newborns. But at 12 weeks, we put them into their cribs. We transitioned them in. We started by having their rock and plays with us. And then at a certain point in between those 12 weeks, we moved their rock and plays into their bedroom so that they could start getting used to their nursery and their surroundings and all of the things. And then at 12 weeks, we transitioned them into their beds. And so what we did is we made sure there was a little bit of a routine. And if you're a mom, I'm sure this isn't necessarily anything new to you as far as like having a routine. What are the things you're going to do before bed? For us, we always gave them a bath. We always sang them songs and said a prayer to them. And you guys, we still do those things to this day with them. They will not go to bed without us saying their prayer and singing their songs because it's so ingrained in them. It's so part of their routine that that's how they go to sleep. Hi, Carly. I love you. I miss you. I want to see your face. So we did this routine with them, and like I said, for us it was the bath. We read them some books, we told them stories, we said a prayer, we sang songs, and then we put them to bed. All in all, it didn't take that long. It wasn't like this long, drawn out, like 2-hour bedtime process, not at all. And so we put them in their beds, and that was that. We made sure that we swaddled them up nice and tight because for our kids, that helped them sleep, was being super swaddled. They loved being swaddled. They loved being cuddly, and they still do. My son Logan sleeps with probably 289 stuffed animals on his bed and then cocooned in like 3 blankets because he just likes to feel warm and cozy and swaddled. He's always been like that. When we first moved them in their beds at 12 weeks, they had their own cribs. So a lot of people ask us if we put them in the same bed because they were so little and they were twins, and we didn't. But a lot of twin moms do. And it's actually just precious. And sometimes we would do it at nap time, but typically we let them have their own bed because we wanted our twins to have their own space, their own identities. Not that their bed really determines their identity, but we wanted them to have their own space that was always theirs. And so they had their own separate cribs. We swaddled them up, we sang their songs, we put them to bed. And so here's what a lot of people ask me, and like moms, a lot of moms ask me this, and they're like, how? So you always hear when a baby's sleeping, let them sleep, right? Like, do not disturb the bear, the beast. Let them sleep. I always heard this, and it always sounded like the right thing to me. Like, if a baby's sleeping, especially after a long, hard day of being a mom, I want that baby to sleep. But in the twin world, which I don't know if Amanda's still on here, but I'm sure she can completely relate. In the twin world, if a baby wakes up to nurse, you want to wake up the other baby, because if you don't, then you're going to put baby one back to sleep after nursing it, and then within the next hour, baby two will probably be up and want to nurse. And if you do this cycle of just feeding whichever baby is awake, you are never going to get any sleep. And so I didn't even mess around with this. I wasn't like, well, let me see if like baby two will maybe just sleep a little bit longer. No. Every time a baby woke up, I grabbed the other baby and fed them as well. So I always tandem breastfed both my babies until they were 15 months old. And they always ate at the same time. Always. So that's like one big tip. That's like a twin mama tip, but you know, they tell you that right off the bat, like wake that other baby up. And although it can be a little bit heartbreaking and a little bit just like, oh, they're sleeping though, you have to do it. So that's just a little tip. Now, a lot of people ask me as well, did I let the boys cry it out? Do I let my kids cry it out? I did research on this, and I didn't like the idea of, I should have looked up the book that I read before I did this, but it's called, if anybody's interested in this book, reach out to me and I'll go find the name. I have sent the link to a couple of twin moms, because it's a doctor who wrote it, and he wrote a book for singletons, one baby, but then he followed it up with a book for multiples. And so same principles, but things are changed a little bit since there's more than one baby. So anyways, I did a lot of research on the sleep training thing. I was like, I didn't love the idea of my babies crying endlessly, crying until they basically like cry themselves to sleep. I know there's research both ways that are like, it's good for them, they whatever, and then there's research that's like, why would you want your baby to cry? They feel abandoned. And so whichever way you are on the spectrum, I was kind of like in the middle. I was okay with my babies crying for a little while, but I also wasn't going to let my kids cry like for hours. And luckily, I didn't have to. So for the boys, I made up this rule in my head, and I don't know if I just kind of like manifested this or what happened, but I said to myself, I will never let the boys cry for more than 10 minutes. I'll never let them cry for more than 10 minutes. And if you read this book, there's methods like after 10 minutes, you go in and you like you put their blanket back on and you console them and whatever. And then you stretch it to 15 minutes and all these things. But for me, I was always like, I don't want them to cry for more than 10 minutes. But for some reason, my boys never cried longer than 7 minutes. And I will tell you that 7 minutes felt like 15 hours when you have newborn babies. Like I said, I didn't start this till they were 12 weeks old. But when you have babies, infants laying there crying, 7 minutes feels like 100 minutes. But this is what I did. I always knew when I got to the 7th minute that they would fall asleep and that they just were overtired and needed to learn to console themselves a little bit. And at 7 minutes, they always went to sleep. So, fast forward a little bit, our boys were wonderful sleepers. They would sleep in until like 9 a.m. every morning. It was just amazing because that meant I could sleep until 9 a.m. every morning. This went till they were probably about 2, which is right when Charlie was born. And then things had to shuffle and shift a little bit differently because now we had a newborn, and we had the boys who were still babies and they still are technically, like, just their brains are just developing and things are always changing, and we can never expect like them to always be one way forever. Jordan said, "You're amazing. I literally always pick Kaya up 2 seconds." And well, that's one thing is my kids, I'm going to get into Charlie, but my boys never, ever, ever slept in our room. Ever. Not in our bed, not in a crib in our room, not in a pack and play on the side of my bed, nothing, none of it. They were never, ever in our room. And that helped tremendously because although I could obviously still hear them crying, it wasn't like right there. So I still got the mom anxiety a little bit, but I knew that they couldn't see me. They didn't know that I was listening and waiting and ready to like run into their room at any second. So that was really helpful. Now with Charlie, we just moved in the last 5 months, but with Charlie, when we brought her home to our little beach house in Sarasota, which was a 2-bedroom. And so clearly those 2 bedrooms were already full. The boys were in one, me and Phil were in the other. So Charlie slept in our room with us. We moved a dresser out there. We got a little nook set up for her, and she was our roommate. And I've never done co-sleeping. I don't really care if you do. I'm not like an anti-co-sleeper, other than I personally am an anti-co. I don't want anybody in my bed. Like, I want my bed to like spread out. I don't want to have like a baby on my face. But I have nothing against it for any other reason than me personally just not wanting anyone else in my bed. So Charlie had a pack and play set up. It was her bed. We got into a schedule on day 1. Her first day home from the hospital, she slept in her pack and play in our bedroom, and she was a pretty good sleep. I will say our first night was hell, and I was like, oh no, I got a bad sleeper. But I think there was just some adjusting and some things to learn, because then her second night she did great. And by 7 weeks, Charlie was already sleeping through the night. She was doing like 7 and 8 hour stretches. But she was a grunter, you guys. She was like a straight up pterodactyl while she slept. And me and Phil, poor Phil, he was still working at the time. I hadn't retired him yet. And he wasn't used to the whole like baby in our room thing, because the boys were in their own room. And when they were newborns, he didn't wake up with me unless I was like, Phil, I need your help real quick to like transfer a baby. But I got the routine down pretty quickly to where I let him sleep because I knew he had to be up early in the morning for work. And so I did nighttime duty with the boys, which they really only woke up around once a night too. But they were quiet. They were in their own room, and he never really got a wake up from me unless I really needed his help. So Charlie was like a whole new world for us because she was in our room. She was grunting. Both of us were just like eyes wide open because we couldn't sleep because she was so loud. But meanwhile, she was sleeping great. She just happened to be a really loud grunter sleeper. Hey, Sammy, I can't wait to see you, girl. So Charlie slept in our room for probably, I can't remember how long, several months she slept in our room until finally I was just like, I can't take this anymore, because when she would wake up, sometimes she would sleep through the night, other times she would wake up, and I knew that she would, if she didn't see me, she would be able to console herself and go back to sleep. But because she was seeing me, she would start crying and screaming until I would come get her. And I just couldn't do it anymore because I knew in my heart that she was ready to sleep through the night, but she wasn't sleeping through the night because she could see me. So I moved her pack and play out into, this is hilarious, in our little old house. We had a room that was like our catch-all room, and it was right off of the kitchen, and it didn't have a door to where it was like a proper bedroom. But I mean, this room had our guest bed, it had our office, it had our dry storage, it had our like random workout equipment and like yoga mat for when we would work out. It was like an everything room. And I was like, why not make it one more room? So I cleared out an area. I put Charlie's pack and play out there. I put some things around her crib to make it feel a little more homey and bedroomy. And that was her room. And from the day that I moved her out there, she turned into just like the most amazing sleeper. she would wake up and cry for maybe 2 minutes and go right back to sleep. And for her, I did the same thing. I was like, well, if that 7-minute rule worked for the boys, I'm going to try it with her. She never cried to 7 minutes. She would cry for 2 minutes. Again, felt like 28, but she would cry for 2. She would go to sleep and sleep great. And so that's kind of my tips for you guys on actual sleep training. Like I said, I'm not perfect, and we are actually right now going through a little bit of a regression where the boys are old enough to where, or you know what? I don't even know when this starts. This could start from day one. I literally do not know, but they're just old enough to tell us about it and talk to us about it. But sometimes the boys will have nightmares and they'll wake up, but they share a room. And so one will have a nightmare and they'll come bang on the door and ask for mommy or daddy, and we're across the house, so we have to hear them and then go get them, and by then the other one's woken up. And so we're kind of dealing with that. Sometimes it's not always nightmares. Sometimes it's like they just want a sip of water. Sometimes it's, whatever. So we're dealing with that with the boys. And this is kind of funny. So the boys aren't sleeping great. Charlie is sleeping great through the night, but she's waking up early. She's waking up at like 5 a.m., 5:30, much earlier than our boys ever did when they were newborn. So she's like an early bird. And then this is where it gets really funny, is our dog is 13 and a half. He's an old dog. And if anyone knows Bentley, they know he's like hi, Andrea, I love you. If anyone knows Bentley, they know he's like the laziest dog in all the land, like just wants to lay around and sleep all day long, all night, whatever. Well, because he's old, I don't know what he's going through as an old man. I can't speak for him, but he's like waking up at night 2 to 3 times a night to like go outside, go to the bathroom, get some water, walk around, sniff his butt. Like, I don't even know what he's doing. He's just being annoying, waking up a few times a night. And so it's funny, Phil, now that I've brought Phil home and we're a full-time family, he wakes up a lot with the kids, a lot more than he used to, and during the night. And then he also wakes up with Charlie when she wakes up bright and early. He wakes up with the boys when they wake up bright and early. And he lets me get a little extra sleep and then like get my life together in the morning. So he's a saint basically. But it's hilarious because he's actually been he'll write it down in like a little journal that he has. Like who woke up, what time they woke up. And poor Phil, some of the days where the kids actually slept through the night and then like miraculously slept until 6 a.m., I see in his notes it says like Bentley was up 4 times last night. It's so funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor guy. I don't even hear Bentley. I barely hear our kids, if I'm being honest. Like, thank God for Phil, because I am passed out so hard at night these days that I barely even hear our kids. Today I woke up and I was like, did our kids wake up last night? Because I didn't hear them at all. He's like, actually, no. They all slept through the night. So we're getting somewhere, you guys. We're getting somewhere. And I blabbered today. But I hope that I gave anyone any kind of tip. I don't even know if I did. I feel like I just blabbered. But just know that whatever you're going through right now is truly just a stage, and that kids are funny and they just need to find their own rhythm. And some of you might